This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. It is Tuesday today, and the purse bids for Fury White are tomorrow, Wednesday evening. So we're going to find out a lot more tomorrow night, hopefully, if they don't get extended. I'm joined by Gareth A. Davies. Do you think they'll get extended once again, or are we going to find out some information tomorrow night, Gareth?
Well, let's hope not, because that would mean they've been extended for a fourth time. You never know what's going on behind the scenes with it. It's an absolute mess. It's chaos at the moment, of course. There's only 3 fights out there, really, that should be being talked about, and that's Fury and White, if they can get it over the line. Fury and Usyk, which Alexander Krasiuk has revealed they've been in talks about since November, believe it or not. And Usyk and Joshua, those are the 3 fights that are causing so much consternation in the heavyweight division, Umar, and it's involving the world's biggest promoters and the 4 biggest names in the heavyweight division right now.
What's your gut feeling then, out of those 3 fights, which ones take place?
It's very hard to discern right now. I mean, Frank Warren's tight-lipped. Bob Arum doesn't want to speak about it. Eddie Hearn is stum about it. I mean, he gave a long interview, didn't he, to your colleague, your Kugan Cassius, last week on the way up to the Conlon Lee Wood press tour. But Eddie didn't say a lot. He said, expect the unexpected. He didn't say expect the expected. So, you know, I mean, I've done a story this week in which, you know, my sources have led me to believe that there has been talk in the background, and there has been talk in the background about Anthony Joshua stepping aside, which I don't see anything wrong in, frankly, because he's got a very, very difficult rematch with Alexander Usyk if he takes it. He's also got a golden opportunity if he takes step aside, if that really is on the table. And, you know, because he gets the chance to fight for the undisputed title within that, if that deal is done, after Fury and Usyk fight for all the belts. So anyone pillorying him for stepping aside is wrong. And it's an amazing business move. But, you know, yesterday, obviously, he came out and denied that. But he didn't say, I refuse to step aside. He said he hasn't done a deal yet. I know that Eddie Hearn, he is speaking today, Eddie Hearn revealed that yesterday. So it's a very confusing situation. And a lot will become clearer tomorrow night, I believe, you know, at high noon in Mexico City, basically, with where the WBC are based. So I've never known a situation quite as confusing as this in lots of ways. And, you know, I wouldn't say it doesn't help the sport, but it's obviously about huge money deals and, you know, the giant chess pieces moving amongst the politics and the promotions and the rivalries within the heavyweight division and amongst the, as I say, the biggest promoters in the world.
Let's talk about that report that you referred to that you covered for the Telegraph, which got a lot of people talking. And of course, more so when Anthony Joshua did a video yesterday, which I'm sure you saw, which seemed like it was directed at you, Gareth. So what was your initial response to Anthony's video and then the backlash of it as well?
Well, I think it was pretty obvious that he didn't say in his response, absolutely, I'm taking Alexander Usyk next. He just said that he needed to see the contract and he hadn't signed anything. He didn't say, absolutely, I'm fighting Alexander Usyk next, and that fight is about to be announced. You know, he fought on September the 25th. He exercised the rematch clause immediately, and here we are in the last week in January, and nothing's been signed, sealed, and delivered. So, and as I said, Alexander Krasiuk, Alexander Usyk's promoter, has said there have been talks with Fury as well. So, you know, read between the lines. It's pretty obvious that all those 3 fights I mentioned are all under discussion. And they found it difficult to find a resolution. But believe me, all those 3 fights are in the works. So it's difficult to discern. As I say, it literally is high noon in Mexico City. It's like a gunfight between the promoters at the OK Corral. And you know, for boxing to fall into place. You know, we've got an amazing schedule in February and March, some brilliant fights, not least on these shores. And yet we haven't got, you know, the blue ribbon division sorted out yet, which I expect it will be in April. The March the 26th is penciled in for Tyson Fury. We know the Principality Stadium is booked for now. That may fall through and it may happen later because of the delays to the purse bids. But yeah, it's a very confusing situation for those covering it, for insiders in the sport, let alone the fans watching it.
I don't think it was any secret over the last few weeks and even maybe months that people were asking the promoters about a potential situation where Anthony Joshua steps aside. However, obviously this £15 million figure was a new thing to us. So where did that come from, Gareth?
Well, I'm not going to reveal my sources. You know, you haven't even opened your curtains this morning. So, you know, they're still closed and it's well into the afternoon. And so, no, there's big money available for all these fights. So it's all doable. You know, Dillian Whyte may have to step aside if he doesn't get his WBC title challenge next. I'm sure he wants to stay busy. You know, it's coming up. Is it coming up for a year since he fought? It is nearly, isn't it? You know,
When was the Povetkin fight? I can't remember.
It was last March, I think, wasn't it? Was it March? The Rock on the Rock of Gibraltar. It was.
Gibraltar,
it was
yeah.
Might be
Yeah,
February,
March or April. March or April, yeah.
So, you know, he's a guy that likes to be active as well. Obviously, he had the injury as well, which precluded him from fighting Otto Wallin. You know, if you go back to September and October, when we had the two big heavyweight fights then that were spectacular. You know, nothing has seemingly moved on since then. And tomorrow we may find out how it all shapes.
Well, yeah, the purse bids hopefully don't get extended. We get that news and clarification. One fight you didn't mention was Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou. Is that realistic?
I think it is, but it's not in the prism of what we're talking about. I mean, it's a far-reaching and very extravagant fight, isn't it? Would they fight with 4-ounce gloves? Would they fight in a cage? Would they be able to kickbox? Would it be in a boxing with 4-ounce gloves? Would Ngannou come over to boxing and do it? I mean, you know, after his performance against Cyril Gane last weekend, where he retained the UFC heavyweight title over 5 rounds. You know, he's in his own disputes with the UFC where he wants allowance for a boxing contract in there. The UFC president, Dana White, has said that, you know, it's not beyond the bounds. But, you know, Ngannou has also come out and said, you know, I'm not being looked after properly by the UFC. I'm finding it difficult. And, you know, he's been praised for his performance on Ariel Helwani's MMA show, MMA Hour, that, you know, he's standing up for those in the sport that need looking after. And, you know, this is an ongoing grievance that a lot of fighters have. You know, that they're not looked after properly. You know, but it's a marketeering world in the UFC. You know, if people draw big numbers, they get big pay, and he feels like he isn't getting what he deserves. And, you know, Dana White didn't appear at the post-fight press conference on Saturday night. That caused consternation. In answer to your question, yeah, I do think that fight could happen, but it's one of those fights that is probably an end game fight for someone like Tyson Fury. Do I really think it'll happen? I don't think it will. But it's fun to think about it and talk about it. And I think Ngannou would struggle in a boxing match with a lot of the top heavyweights. I mean, you know, him against Anthony Joshua, it's brilliant. Cameroon versus Nigeria. I know that obviously Anthony is British Nigerian, and Francis is kind of a French Cameroonian. But, you know, there's massive fights out there for all these guys. I mean, look, I mean, was Jake Paul not the biggest pay-per-view event of last year against Ben Askren? I think it was in the whole of MMA. So it's a weird and wonderful world we live in at the moment. And hopefully there'll be resolution on the things we're talking about tomorrow night in Mexico. I cannot remember a purse bid being extended like this 3 times. or delayed or suspended, and then, things not working out. Obviously, the complications of the arbitration case that Wyatt has with the WBC, but they need to clear the decks with it all if they're going to make that fight with Fury.
Just before I let you go, I would like to get your take on what you'd like to see next as a fan. I think this is fairly obvious. What I'd like to see is Fury Usyk. I'm sure you share that same sentiment, but your colleague at TalkSport, I was just listening to it, Simon Jordan, was essentially saying Joshua deserves criticism if he steps aside. A lot of boxing fans don't share that opinion. Joshua surely shouldn't get criticism for stepping aside, allowing Fury.
No, it makes sense.
And then getting the winner.
It makes business sense, and it makes, look, people, for the first few days, if he does step aside and take a fee, and he has a contractual deal to fight the winner of Fury and Usyk for all 4 belts, heavyweight belts, there will be a lot of noise on social media, but it's not a bad move at all. And, I think when you look at it at the moment, I think the number 1, number 2 in the world in the heavyweight division are Fury and Usyk. It'll be for the Ring Magazine belt as well. So it'll be 5 belts on the line. It's a fantastic fight between 2 brilliant boxers. So, and I see Fury as the favourite in that. But you cannot write this guy Usyk off. He's an incredible fighter. He's probably the easiest out of all of them to do a deal with. That's why they're open to all these fights. So, in many ways, I would like to see Fury and Usyk next, because it gives us a route to the fight we all want in Britain between Fury and Joshua. If Fury beats Usyk, and if Usyk beats Fury, then we get Joshua against Usyk anyway for a second time. The other thing we haven't mentioned, and it has surprised me, is that Anthony Joshua hasn't kind of announced his training team yet. And that is another reason for suspecting that he may not have a fight very soon. And that it may be the summer when he fights next. We don't know any of this yet for certain. And I don't think the promoters and the boxers absolutely know for certain. But I think we'll find out an awful lot in the next 48 hours, Umar.
Well, we hope so, because it's been a long time coming. Gareth, appreciate your time on IFL TV as always, and we'll catch up when there's some concrete news, all right?
My pleasure. Cheers.